Oh, ya. YouTube. Okay, kita play video dulu Doktor. Sementara tunggu.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
Sini tak?
Mana?
Masuk
Di sini ke?
Oh,
okey. Kita macam podcast macam.
Oh, ya ke? Okay, boleh start. Live pun dah tinggal live.
Okay. Sorry. Hai. Selamat petang semua. Terima kasih Profesor Madia Law Himi. First time datang ke ABBD?
Yes, Dr. Intan ni the first time saya datang.
Okay.
Sudah lama di USM tapi kali pertama.
Bagus. Always the first time for everything.
Yes.
And then selamat datang ke Pusat Perubatan USM Bertam besar.
Terima kasih Dr. Intan.
Dan kita sangat berbesar hati lah dengan kunjungan Profesor Madia Dr. Lau Himi untuk bercakap mengenai assessment tu iaitu untuk dyslexia. Okay, alright. Sebelum kita pergi lebih lanjut, mungkin saya bacakan dahulu biodata Prof.
Okay. Thank you.
Pengenalan speaker kita untuk petang ni. Alright. Profesor Madia Dr. Lau Himi is an esteemed academic and practitioner in the field of special education. She holds the position of the Associate Professor and Chairperson of the Special Education Program at the School of Educational Studies, USM. And in addition to her academic role, she is the Director of Brainbow USM, a spin-off company from USM that focuses on the bridging the gap between research and practical applications in special education and early intervention. Dr. Law's commitment to advance special education is evident through her active engagement in research, particularly in the area of inclusive education, autism, and dyslexia. So her work is widely recognized and respected, with numerous publications in top-tier journals contributing significantly to the field both in Malaysia and across Asia. So apart from the academic and research pursuit, Dr. Lau is also a clinical speech-language pathologist. Her dual expertise as a researcher and clinician allow her to integrate theoretical knowledge with practical intervention, enhancing the impact of her works on special education practice. Okay, I think kita jangan ambil masa Dr. Lau begitu lama. Saya jumpa Dr. Lau untuk memberikan the lecture now.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Dr. Intan. So, today I'm very honored to be invited to USM MBU untuk menjalankan ceramah ini. So, terima kasih banyak kepada Dr. Intan kerana banyak mengambil berat dan menggalakkan inovasi yang membantu kanak-kanak dengan masalah pembelajaran. So saya akan share slide saya. Okay. Saya nak tahu macam mana saya share. Okay, saya tengah cari slide saya. Sorry, a little bit of technical glitch. I cannot find my slide. So, macam mana saya cari slide saya ya? Oh, okay. Alright. Okay, thank you kepada Encik Fazian ya. Alright. Okay, selamat petang kepada semua yang menghadiri di Dewan petang ini dan juga sesiapa yang online ya. So, I tak boleh nampak chat dalam online. So, kalau ada apa-apa, you can also let me know ya if you have any questions. So, setakat ini audio di online okay kan? So far, anyone that who is online, you can let us know if there is any audio issue here. Okay, so today I would like to share some perspective here about dyslexia in Malaysia and how could we better identify and support children with dyslexia. So let me begin with my presentation. Okay, so today's presentation, I will briefly talk about the background here and the significance of why we need dyslexia assessment. And I will also explain what is the solution that we can offer here through My Baca Uji, which is a research innovation in University Science Malaysia, and I also would like to spare some time to have a Q&A session here. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put it down in the chat, and then later we can discuss about it. Okay, so first of all, I would like to introduce what is Brainbow. Brainbow is a spin-off company of USM that drives special needs education research, training, and resources in Malaysia. We focus on evidence-based approaches, crafting culturally relevant tools and training programs. So at the moment, we focus on three main aspects, which include research and development, educator and caregiver training on learning disabilities and special needs. And we also develop and build resources to support professionals and parents to teach children with special educational needs in the inclusive environment. Okay, so for anyone who are interested to know more about Brainbow, do scan the QR code which will link you to our website. And in your website, you can find information which are related to our My Baca Uji, which is our dyslexia assessment, and also Gambi, which is our autism resources for parents and teachers. At the moment in the hall, there is some audio problem here. Okay, we are hearing a very special sound. How about those online?
Speaker.
Sorry for those who are online, please bear with us. Oh yeah, okay, so magic, the sound is gone. Okay, so saya teruskan ya. So this is me, as Dr. Intan has introduced. Yes, I'm currently working as a associate professor in School of Educational Studies (USM), and currently I'm also the chairperson for the special education program. So first, let's start talking about dyslexia. So what is dyslexia? So I'm sure dyslexia is probably not something very new. Probably many people have heard about this term before, but do we understand the term? No? To what extent everyone is on the same page? What is dyslexia? So this is what we are going to talk about in this session. Okay, so let's look at this passage. Okay, so don't worry, the screen has no issue here. If you start to wonder, hey, after just now the audio problem, do we now have a screen problem? Yeah, the screen has no problem. But there are some problems with the text that you are seeing. Okay, so, but despite the problem that you are seeing, whether could you read the text? Let me find someone among the audience now, yeah, in the hall to read it. Those online, you can try to read aloud the text that you are seeing on the screen. Okay, anyone want to try? Let's ask Dr. Wong. Dr. Wong, would you help us to read aloud the text on the screen?
According to a research at Cambridge University, it doesn't matter in what order the letters in the word are. The only important thing is that the first and the last letter to be at the right place. The rest can be a total mess and you can still read it without problem.
Wow.
Okay, with good speed.
Very good speed, very fluent. But that is very magic, right? How, Dr. Wong, how could you read the text? How could you recognize all the words?
According to the research.
According to the research in Cambridge University. Yeah, so I think from this very simple test, we can see that Dr. Wong probably has no problem here in recognizing the word. Okay, so now let's discuss why Dr. Wong has no problem in recognizing the words. Okay, so first we can see that what Dr. Wong has demonstrated to us just now is he has no problem to split the words according to their sounds. So he only recognized the first sound, which is and the last sound, which is ng, and then he can actually rule out that the word is according. Okay, so same as the fourth word that you see on the first line, he probably recognized that the first letter is ver and the last letter is ch here, the sound is ch, and somehow his brain enable him to decide that this word is research. Am I right, Dr. Wong? Yeah. Okay. So we can see Dr. Wong has no problem with breaking down the sounds in the word. Despite that the sounds are now in different places, but we know that he could recognize the first sound and the last sound. So that is the reason that he can scramble back the words. Yeah. So but if a person that has problem with dyslexia, that is probably something that he couldn't do, because a person with dyslexia would not have the ability to break down the sounds and to identify single sounds in the word. So if you show this passage to someone with dyslexia, he will probably unable to read as fluently and as smoothly as what Dr. Wong has demonstrated just now. Okay, and the second thing, other than the ability to recognize the sounds in the word, what we can see that Dr. Wong probably has a very good memory. And that memory enable him to hold the sound of and ng in the brain before he could analyze that the middle sound is probably according. Okay, so his working memory is good enough for him to hold the first sound and the last sound long enough to enable him to interpret what could be the sounds here in the middle of the word. Okay, so again, we can see that enabled Dr. Wong to read the passage very smoothly and fluently. But some person with dyslexia, they might face issue in text. They might have working memory problem. So they could identify the first sound as they could identify the last sound as ng, but then they forgot how how to actually put them together. So that disrupt the fluency of reading, or they might take longer time than needed to read. So what we can see so far is the ability to recognize sounds, the ability to hold sounds long enough to be processed are two critical elements of reading. And there is another critical element of reading, the ability to manipulate the sound. So we can see that Dr. Wong's brain is very flexible and very skillful in putting the sounds in different places and readjusting the sound back to the correct order. So Dr. Wong has no difficulties here in reordering here the mixed up letters and to enable him to correctly sound out the correct word that's supposed to be. So that is the ability to manipulate the sounds here and play around with the sounds. So again, in contrast, someone with dyslexia condition might face more difficulties, in how they could manipulate the sounds in the words and play around with the sounds in the word. Okay, so congratulations, Dr. Wong. We confirm that you do not have dyslexia. Okay, so now let's look back at these three criteria here: the ability to recognize the sound, the ability to hold the sounds, and the ability to rearrange here the sounds and to produce different sound sequence here and to able to read it out as words. So all these different aspects. Okay, now I want to ask you, what is the common thing that you can see across all these three different aspects? What are the words or what are the elements that appear in each aspect that you can see? In all the descriptions, you can see that there is one word that probably keep on occurring in the first sentence, the second sentence, and the third sentence. Anyone can tell? Anyone? Yes, you are right. Yeah, so we can see the first aspect require splitting of sounds. The second aspect require the holding of sounds, and the last aspect require we to produce the words according to the sounds. So all these involve the manipulation and the processing of sounds. So that is the reason that many researchers and scholars in the field of dyslexia, they relate dyslexia as a condition that is related to processing of sounds, which affects someone's ability to accurately and fluently decode and interpret written language. So in short, many people in the field of dyslexia or reading research, they would associate dyslexia as a condition of phonological processing disorder. In layman terms, it means that whether children or adults that are affected by dyslexia, processing sounds is something which is difficult for them to do naturally. Okay, so far we are good. So what could be the symptoms for someone that have difficulties in processing sounds? So a child or adult with dyslexia might find it very difficult to identify rhyming words. Okay, what could be a rhyming words for cat in English?
Rat.
Rat. Correct. Hat. Yeah. So if you could identify rhyming words very fast and promptly, so probably you'll feel glad that, okay, I passed another test for dyslexia. Okay. Another one is phonemic awareness, how you can break down the sounds in a word. For example, the sound of a cat, can you break it down to smaller units? K, E, T. Yeah, cats. So if you can sound out the letters into different sounds, then probably you will have reduced risk for dyslexia. It shows that you have adequate phonemic awareness, yeah, to read words, even new words that you encounter or nonsense words, yeah. Okay, next will be when you read out words, is there a tendency for you to substitute, omit, or adding sounds? So, for example, someone who has a tendency to make a lot of errors in reading, for example, the word treat, someone might read as trap, or someone might read as tap. No, if someone keep on substituting words, omitting words, or adding words when they read, so you would probably suspect that, hey, no, I probably would recommend him for a dyslexia assessment. And someone who keep on making spelling errors, like the word night spelled as night, and the spelling error could be very inconsistent. Okay, so you might also want to suspect that if that person needs a dyslexia assessment. Okay, and again, just now how we admire Dr. Wong can read so fast and fluent, right? Yeah, sometimes you might come across children or adults that they have no problem sounding out the words, but it just takes longer time than usual, yeah, for them to finish reading the whole passage. So you might also want to suspect that, whether that person is affected by dyslexic condition. Some children or some adults that find it extremely difficult to learn new words, so that might also be an indicator here. He might affect by the dyslexic condition, or confused between words which are similar. So we can see dyslexia symptoms could cover these different aspects, that most of them will point to difficulties in manipulating and processing the sounds associated with the words that we see. Okay, so now I would like to ask a question. You might have heard many people say, oh, I know what is dyslexia. Dyslexia is when you see the word upside down. So now I would like to ask everyone, is it true that people with dyslexia, they do see the words upside down or in reverse image order? Some people say yes, some people hesitate. So those of you who are online, what do you think? Is it true that people with dyslexia do see words upside down? We quite often hear this expression, right? Yeah, so parents or maybe teacher would say that, oh, that student cannot read, he sees words upside down. So I think there are different opinions here in regards to this, but most of the researchers, they believe that this is not true. They would say that that is a myth of dyslexia. Okay, but later I will explain that dyslexia could be also manifested differently in different population. So that is something that we probably cannot say 100%, but in most circumstances, people with dyslexia, they do not see the words upside down. Because just now, as we have proved, through the demo by Dr. Wong and through the explanation, we understand that dyslexia is mainly associated with processing of sounds and actually less on visual perception. So dyslexia people, they do not see words upside down, but sometimes they do make mistakes. Like they will read B as P or they read U as N. And that is probably because they do not know the sound of the letter, so they just guess. Yeah. So, so this is one possible myth of dyslexia. But other than that, what are the other myths of dyslexia? So there are people who probably say that, that person is not smart, he cannot read. So this is another myth. Dyslexia is not caused by low intelligence. Dyslexia can affect individuals of all intelligence level. And there are people with dyslexia which is very bright and very creative very smart. So dyslexia and intelligence, there is no correlation. In fact, one of the criteria to diagnose dyslexia is the discrepancy between reading abilities and other cognitive skills. So that is another myth. One popular myth is, oh, when he is older, he can read. No need to worry. Dyslexia can be outgrown. Is it true? So this is not true because it is also a myth. You cannot outgrow dyslexia. You're probably able to find compensation strategy to cope with the lack of natural ability to process speech sounds or the sounds of the words that you see. But dyslexia is a lifelong condition. So what people with dyslexia who have successfully overcome some of their main difficulties is probably they get support from the teachers, they get support from the schools, that enable them to use alternative methods like listening to the audio text to compensate for their dyslexic condition, or they have learned certain tricks and compensation strategies to overcome the challenge that they are facing. So dyslexic is a lifelong condition. Okay, some people might also say that this is so rare. No, dyslexia is not common, but actually it's not true. Dyslexia affects 10 to 15% of the population. So in a class, normal class, we have 30 kids to 40 kids, right, in a primary school. So we are probably anticipating around like at least 3 that could be affected by dyslexia, maybe at different level. Yeah, so we definitely will find a few kids in the class that are slower in reading and finding more challenging to recognize and read new words. Yeah, so but have we ever do an assessment for them? Probably not that common, yeah. So probably only dyslexia assessment is accessible in certain schools, but overall we do not yet do any universal screening or assessment, yeah, for dyslexia in our school. Despite that, the prevalence rate is actually quite higher, 10 to 15%. Okay, so some people might also say, not a big issue lah. Dyslexia only affects reading. It doesn't affect growth. It doesn't affect everyday function. No, it only makes a person unable to read. But thinking about reading, is it something very critical? Yeah, it's a very critical skills and abilities to perform well in schools, because reading provide the access to knowledge in school. So for children who are unable to read, they face a lot of difficulties and struggles in school. And sometimes the problem that they face is not only the reading problem, but the other things associated with unable to read. Like people would misunderstand them as lazy, do not like to read, didn't focus in the class, didn't listen to the teacher, without knowing that the underlying issue that they are facing is the lack of ability to process sounds and read. So we can see how this myth and misconception might become the barrier for children with dyslexia to obtain the diagnosis and the intervention that they need to help them to be more successful in life. So because I'm coming to the pusat perubatan kan, so I thought that maybe I can show some brain, but don't expect me to explain in detail because I'm unable to do so, and I will feel so shy because I'm sitting beside Dr. Intan. But nice. I think yeah. So what I could do the best is only to present you this diagram, and a point that I would like to make is you can see the parietal temporal lobe and the occipital temporal lobe for people who are between effective readers and dyslexic reader. Yeah, we can see that in dyslexic reader, these two areas that are under activation. We do not see, you see, the activation that is clear, or sign of activation or lack of activation in these two areas. So, and we can see that these are the areas that are involved in the processing of sounds, in our brain. So this is what we see, across many studies when they do imaging on the brains for people with dyslexia and people without dyslexia. This is one of the common patterns that they see. Another interesting things that you can see here is the Broca area. You can see that people who are dyslexia, their Broca area activation seems to be more activated than the typical reader. So there are also many scientists, neuroscientists, who say that the reason that their Broca area is more activated is to compensate for the lack of activation in the parietal temporal area. So so this is one pattern that we see here when we do neuroimaging comparison between dyslexia reader and non-dyslexia reader. But obviously that is not the only one lah. There are more patterns than that. But this is only what I could manage to present so far. Okay, so to put it in a more layman way, so there are currently like just now I present you one model, which is the phonological model of dyslexia, which argue that the lack or the deficit in phonological processing is the main cause of dyslexia. But if you happen to come across other dyslexia researchers, they might say that, hey, Dr. Low is only providing you one perspective. So I have to admit that that is one perspective. There are many other perspectives and models that researchers have proposed to explain for the condition of dyslexia. So I think this diagram pretty much summarizes here an overview of dyslexia, and I like that it actually used the underground subway map to try to explain the different loop that involve in processing sounds and visual signals, in reading, and any obstruction in these different loops can probably contribute to difficulties in reading. So there are more voices that propose different deficit model of reading. So despite that, the phonological model of reading still hold very strong. Yeah. Okay, so this I hope it's not too small, but what we could see in this slide is just now that is like overview here. Now we sort of recognize that there are multiple models of reading. So this is an attempt to describe this multiple of reading according to different subtypes. Okay, so we can see that one of the most common dyslexic condition is the phonological based dyslexia, which is deficit associated with sound processing condition. And another common manifestation of dyslexia is surface dyslexia. So this is especially some people would argue that readers that find it difficult to read Mandarin words. Mandarin words is orthographic form, so they probably could link to the condition of surface dyslexia. So in contrast to phonological dyslexia, which is the main deficit part is phonological processing, surface dyslexia might affect the visual element. Okay, so that is one distinction between these two types. But other than that, there are also other types. For example, rapid naming deficit dyslexia, double deficit dyslexia, visual dyslexia, and dyslexia. So, however, if you look at the whole population of people affected by dyslexia, these are the less common subtypes here. Okay, so we can see many attempts have tried to define dyspraxia according to whether the sensory is the deficit is sensory related, according to where the breakdown is, and according to the time of onset. Yeah, so this is rather similar to other language conditions such as aphasia. Okay, so now we can probably come to some conclusion about the definition of dyslexia after the background overview. Yeah, so I think for anyone who do research in dyslexia or who want to pursue in services related to dyslexia, we probably want to look at the gold standard here proposed by International Dyslexia Association. So International Dyslexia Association in the year 2002, their board had came out with this definition of dyslexia, yeah, to drive the advancement of research and also interpretation of dyslexia in the field. So according to them, dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is neurobiological in origin. I think no one would actually argue against this. So it is neurobiological in origin. Okay, so it is not due to just the environment factor only. Yeah? It has to be internal. And it is a condition characterized by difficulties with accurate or fluent word recognition, yeah, by poor spelling and decoding ability. So this is related to the processing condition that I explained earlier. And mainly, it is typically result from deficit in phonological component of language, which is unexpected in relation to other cognitive abilities. So from there, we can sort of come out that according to this definition, there are three main criteria to diagnose dyslexia. The first is difficulties in word recognition. The second is difficulties in phonological processing. And the third is unexpected discrepancy between reading and other cognitive skills. So this is the criteria that we follow when we develop dyslexia assessment in School of Educational Studies, USM. So now we also know that in the world population, 10 to 15% of us could be affected by dyslexia at different level. Okay, now let's look at the Malaysian population. So what you can see in this diagram is the statistic of students enrollment. So this D1, D2, D3, D4, right, represent darjah 1, darjah 2, darjah 3, darjah 4, darjah 5, darjah 6. So if you look at darjah 1, in 2024, the enrollment rate is 446,000. Okay, so almost like 500,000 children here is going to standard 1 this year. It's quite a big number, yeah. So and then same in darjah 2 is also around 447 and so on. So we can see that in Malaysia every year we have almost near 500,000 of kids who are enrolling in standard 1 and then later standard 2 and so on, yeah. So if we are talking about 10 to 15% of these children might be affected by dyslexia, that would produce 45,000 of students with dyslexia in darjah 1 every year itself. Yeah, it's a big number. Divided by our 13 states, we are probably seeing at least 3,000 children in each state that are affected by dyslexic condition. Yeah, so all together we add up from standard 1 to standard 6. Yeah, this 45,000 times 6, which means currently, just in Malaysia itself, in the primary school, we are projecting that there are 270,000 students with dyslexia. Means those who are struggling with reading, those who find it hard to read, those who are scolded by teacher or parents every day because they are unable to read. So this is the number of them. Yeah? But at the moment, does our system capture this number? Okay, now I'm going to review to you. Ta-da! So if we base on the report from the Ministry of Education, we add up those that have a formal record of dyslexia, we only managed to get 9,199 students documented with dyslexia in 2023. Okay, it's a huge gap from 270,000 that we see in the previous slide. Okay, if you convert it into percentage, which means in Malaysia at the moment, only 1 in 29 students with dyslexia were identified. And they were, well, because I think those of us who are in the allied health or health, like, we know how important it is for us to identify children with developmental condition, because once we identify, which means support will be made available to them. But those who are unidentified means they do not get the support that they need, because no one knows that they are struggling. Yeah, and we can see that in Malaysia, many out there with dyslexia, no one actually know that they exist here. So they are left in the school to deal with that problem themselves. Okay, so that is the reason why we need to have a dyslexia assessment, a formal, standardized, normative dyslexia assessment that can help us to identify these students as early as possible, so that we can provide the right reading remediation to help them to overcome some of the fundamental problems that they have. But in Malaysia, we can see that overall, our public awareness of dyslexia is not high. No one is talking about dyslexia as much as probably we talk about different health condition here, or different developmental condition. So, and one possibility is because in Malaysia, we do not have much yet at the moment assessment tools to evaluate dyslexia. And some clinical settings will probably use some adapted tools or some international tools for dyslexia assessment. But we know that most of the available tools probably is in English language or other languages that unable to help us to identify reading problems in Malay language. And for us, again, in a clinical setting, we know that the reason for us to do assessment, other than to make diagnosis, assessment outcome contribute a lot to the planning of intervention. Because from the profiling that we obtain from assessment, then we know what are the breakdowns, what are the effects that are being, what are the areas which are being affected that we should provide more targeted intervention. So we can see and we can project that one issue that we do not have assessment for dyslexia in Malaysia had partly contributed to discontinuity of intervention for dyslexia, because there is no tools to help in planning the reading goal here for the students. So we can see this chain effect is now happening in Malaysia, which lead to the negative outcome in reading. Okay, so in USM, so what we are trying to provide is the dyslexia assessment. So today we also have it here, which is the first dyslexia assessment that we produce here in School of Educational Studies, USN, and this is called My Baca Uji. So we consider that to be among the first year formal assessment tool in Malaysia, focusing on dyslexia diagnosis. So this tool offers clear guideline to identify dyslexia, which developed over 10 years of research, supported by theoretical principles and also empirical evidence. Okay, so the research actually was initiated by Professor Li Lei Hua, and I was actually his postdoc fellow, the research officer, and later I become her colleague here in School of Educational Studies. So I was involved in different phases of this research development, and by Dr. Ann here, who did her master and parts of his PhD here about this MBU. Okay, so the research background is spanned across 10 years here, and the outcome from the research were published in more than 10 SSCI publications. Okay, so now I will briefly explain what were the publications about. Okay, so the first area of research here, when Prof. Lee started this dyslexia research more than 10 years ago, is about understanding how reading in Malay language is different from reading in English. Okay, so what he found out from her research is Bahasa Malaysia, same as Bahasa English, is a phonological language. So then, naturally, to read phonological language, you need phonological processing. You need the ability to break down the sounds, in the words according to the unit, which is the letter or the suku kata. So that I think most of us do know the fact that Malay is a easier language compared to English. Here it's easier to learn Malay language compared to English because Malay language has very transparent letter and sound map. Every letter only is represented by one sound, not like English. The A can be sound out very differently here in different word contexts here. But also something very different between English and Malay is English words, there are many monosyllabic words. But in Malay word, we have very few monosyllabic words. Okay, Malay is a very syllabic language. So that also makes Malay very uniquely different from English. So understanding these linguistic characteristics here is important because we have to we have to consider that language aspects in the assessment development. So now we are going to revisit the test that we have earlier. But now we are going to do it in Malay language. I wonder whether one of our student representative here would like to try this.
Amin,
Amin?
you want to try?
Yeah.
You can read aloud.
I don't know the first one.
Yeah.
You can guess? Menurut?
Menurut satu kebijakan di University Sciences ya, dia tidak mungkin dalam membutuhkan huruf-huruf dalam satu pernyataan. Yang penting adalah huruf pertama dan tanda telah ditentukan yang betul. Yang lain boleh menjadi tidak disusun dan anda masih boleh membacanya tanpa masalah.
Very good. Okay, so also pass the dyslexic screening here. So yeah, congratulations. So we can see that Amin was able to read it with adequate fluency, very clearly. Amin, do you find it difficult to read? Masih boleh, ya? Okay, so we can see from this example that the processes that we use here to read English and Malay is rather similar. And why? The reason is because both of them involve phonological processing. Okay, involve the process of encoding and decoding the sounds according to the alphabets here or the letter. Okay, but how about Mandarin? Anyone who is familiar with Mandarin, do you think we can perform the similar test in Mandarin?
I don't know. I don't know the structure of the language.
Yeah, you don't know. Yeah, it's right. But how would you describe the differences between Mandarin character compared to English or Malay word?
Because the spelling is quite special, right?
Yeah. So we even use
It's
the
not phonetic.
term. Yeah, it's not phonetic. You are right. So we call the word character.
Okay.
Because they are orthographic. They are like picture.
Yeah.
But we don't say Malay character. We say Malay words because it's phonology. Yeah. So just now the earlier passage, this one I generate it using ChatGPT. So I plug in the Cambridge text and then I say you generate something for USM in Malay language, and that's how it got it. And then I thought I could do the same for the Mandarin. So I also say that how about now you produce another similar test in Mandarin? You want to see the outcome?
Yeah.
Okay, so the ChatGPT very confident. It says, sure, this is an example of a similar sentence in Mandarin with the first and the last characters of each word retained and the internal character jumbled within each word. So I was like, wow, you could even do it for Mandarin. How amazing is ChatGPT? But let's see the outcome. It's rather small, but do you notice any differences? It's pretty much similar, right? It's
Yeah.
almost similar. So ChatGPT, even though despite that it is so confident in saying that he can produce it for me, in fact, nothing much had happened. What he does is to substitute some words. For example, this word 不重要, he substitute it with another word. But he actually didn't jumble up the letter or the words like how we can see in the conversion from the English to the Malay text. So we can see learning to read in Mandarin is drastically different from how the processes involved in learning to read in English and BM. Yeah. So we can see that the dyslexic manifestation in Mandarin, those who are reading to read in Mandarin will be probably totally different processes which are involved compared to those who are learning to read in English and Malay language. So in other words, what you can interpret if someone is considered or diagnosed with dyslexia in Malay language, that person will probably also be dyslexic in English, right? Because the processes that we use to read Malay text and English text are the same. But that person is probably not dyslexic in Mandarin. So you will hear parents that say, my child, Chinese language, okay, only cannot read English and Malay.
Okay.
But there are two possibilities. One is lack of exposure, not reading enough. But if the mom say, I send him to tuition every day, still cannot, then it's not because of exposure. Then it's probably of dyslexic condition. Yeah. So what we could project here and could know is someone with dyslexia is probably the English and Malay will be similarly affected, and Mandarin will be a different story lah. But again, in the opposite, if someone is diagnosed with dyslexia in Mandarin, cannot read Mandarin words, he probably is not dyslexic in English or Malay. Yeah, because the processes involved is different. But there might be some who are very, very unlucky. All processes are affected. That is something we call deep dyslexia. But we know this dyslexia is very uncommon. Yeah, it's a very rare condition. But we want to give it the benefit of doubt that some children might still be affected by this very rare condition. Yeah. So what we could interpret now is dyslexic is very language dependent. Yeah, because we will use different processes to read different languages. Yeah. So this few slides sum up what we explained earlier. Yeah. So Malay language is transparent language. We have less sounds in Malays compared to English. So Malay should be easier to read. But Malay is bisyllabic. No, usually the words in Malay are longer compared to the words that you see in English. And if you look at children's literature, those storybooks, textbooks that children read, 70% of the words that they are reading are bisyllabic. Okay, contoh, saya makan nasi. But if you look at reading literature in English language, 60% of the words are monosyllabic. If you have small kids at home and you have some storybooks, you can open. Okay, I think you will see this. Most of the words that your kids are reading, the storybooks, the picture, the very small, the preschool reading books, mostly are monosyllabic. Okay, so that is the reason why we cannot just use English dyslexia assessment to assess children who are reading Malay language, because there are some fundamental differences in how the linguistic word structure of these two languages. And also, is it easier to remember monosyllabic word compared to bisyllabic word or monosyllabic?
I'm not sure.
So just now I say monosyllabic word is usually shorter,
Mhm.
so it's actually easier to remember.
Okay.
Like the word jam, the word man. Once you see it, you no need to decode it. You just remember the shape. You see it again, you know this is man. Because it's short, it's easier to remember. So you will also come across parents who tell you that, hey, my son has no problem in reading in kindergarten. No, whatever teacher show him the word he can read. But suddenly go to primary school cannot read all. And then do you suspect dyslexia?
Yes.
Yeah. Why?
Because when you go to primary school, the words get more complicated.
Yeah, the words get complicated
Longer.
and longer. So you cannot use memory strategy to read. You have to use real decoding skill. Yeah. So a lot of children, because dyslexic children could be very smart children. Yeah. So they can remember the words. They remember the shape. But once they go to primary school, it's beyond their memory capacity to remember all the shapes for different words that they come across. And they have to project many words every day. So that's when the sign of dyslexia become more prominent. So that is the reason also that usually dyslexia is diagnosed when the child go to standard 1. We might not be able to catch them as early as as the preschool level. And another thing that is difficult to catch them at preschool level is some schools do not integrate reading as the core curriculum in preschool. Currently, we have many preschool which are play-based, activity-based, so there are no serious reading lab. So even though there are schools that practice early literacy program, so sometimes it's hard to make the diagnosis or assessment for preschoolers is because they might not expose enough to reading in a particular language. So it's harder to differentiate whether the inability to read is lack of language exposure or is it because of dyslexia. But when the children go to primary 1, I think based on what we see, most children would already learn sukata in preschool. I think most of our preschool programs in Malaysia, we already introduced to the kids, the basic words and the school kata. So they would at least expose to 1 to 2 years early literacy program in preschool. And then if they go to standard 1, they are still unable to read school kata, they are still unable to read some common words, then these children would need to be referred for dyslexia assessment. Yeah. Okay. So these are the things that we are seeing. So, but then people might say that, since Malay language is easier to learn, then maybe less people are dyslexic. Is it true?
No.
Yeah, it's probably not true, because another thing that we have to consider is a syllabic structure. So despite that it is easier to learn because it's transparent, there are less sound, but there are more syllables. It's even harder to remember words in Malay language. Yeah, you really have to use true decoding to read in Malay. But in English, a lot of words actually are sight words. Sight words is you no need to use decoding to read. Like stomach, you cannot decode to read stomach. The spelling and the sound is actually do not have a direct correspond. So many of words like stomach, all these in English word, we read using another root, which is sight word reading. Yeah, but Malay, there is no sight word reading. Okay, so like readers who are reading in Malay, you only depend on one skill, which is decoding. Yeah, you have to pronounce out the school kata in order to read. But if you are unable to do that, then you will be very affected by the condition, of unable to do so. And then again, we also, because Mandarin and Tamil are also common languages in Malaysia, so we can see that they are also different. Mandarin is a logographic, or some people call it orthographic language. So it's characters, it's visual based. So reading in Mandarin will require a different ways to interpret the words and the different ways to process the words. But Tamil will be actually rather similar to Malay, because it also involves sound and letter correspond, even though the way we write the character might be different. Okay, so all right. So we finished the first set of the research here that are produced by Prof. Li Hua during the first phase of her assessment development. So after understanding the differences here, and then she moved on to the second phase where she want to do the item analysis and to see what are the constructs to be included in the dyslexia assessment that she intended to develop. So in this second phase of research, we look at the items here and the construct to be included in the dyslexia assessment. She refers to the standard of International Dyslexia Association that I explained earlier, which include word recognition, phonological processing, and discrepancy of reading abilities and cognitive abilities. And then she did several research here to identify the constructs which are related to these three criteria. So in her research, she found that the letter naming, single word reading, non-single word reading, and single word spelling had a very good the composites index for word identification. And then rapid automatic naming for numbers, digit span, elision, sound blending, and sound segmentation, contribute to phonological processing, like index here. And lastly, skill discrepancy. Okay, so this ultimately became the constructs, for the development of My Baca Uji, the assessment tool. So you can see in our forms, it composed of these 10 subtests and also a checklist here that help us to profile the third criteria. Okay, that's right. Okay, all right. Okay. So now let's focus on what is included in this assessment. So it's developed for the profiling of reading abilities for children who age between 7 to 10 years old. And then the criteria would be the child will have 2 years formal instruction on Malay language. And then it was based on 255 children in Malaysia. And then at the moment, we have the paper and pen version of administration. And coming soon, we are also hope to digitalize it to suit the preference of some assessor. And the scoring is conducted using the T-score method. Okay, so what do we have in this assessment? We have the bilingual manual. That is instruction to how to conduct the assessment in Malay language and also in English. So to ease the reference of the assessor. And we have the stimulus book, which is this. So these are the stimulus words a compilation of stimulus words that we present to the students so that we can record their scores. Okay, and all the words are actually developed through research so that we could identify the best word stimulus to capture their reading condition. And we also have our recording form, which is this. Okay, the recording form that show enable us to do the recording and the scoring, yeah, and the conversion of the score to show the level of performance. Yeah, I'm putting it upside down. Okay, and yeah, so let's go. It's the same. Yeah. So this is what we get if you are interested to obtain this set for your clinic. The manual, the stimulus book, the recording form, and also the reinforcement sheet. Because the test itself is around 30 minutes here, usually we conduct it within 20 to 30 minutes. And for some kids, they find it stressful. So we have this reinforcement sheet, yeah, where after each subtest they can scratch to find out what is the mystery space item, and most kids find it fun when we do that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So yeah. So now we move on to each respective criteria. Yeah. So, but before we move on, is everyone okay? Those who are watching live, everything okay? Yeah. Because no, our audience in the hall now get a bit excited after they see the test. Okay. All right. Okay. So now I continue. Yeah.
We can see the comments here.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So now I can see the comment. Okay. Great. Okay, so next, I would just want to briefly explain here what are the things that we also consider the design principle of this test. Okay, if you have a chance to go through our test item, you'll notice that the test is conducted using single word. We do not have passage reading in our text. It's because the design principle we follow the simple view of reading, which means to identify dyslexia, you no need to actually identify it in a passage or sentence level. It is actually the breakdown of reading of single words. So the assessment is conducted using word stimulus alone without reading in passages. Yeah. So that is one design principle. Okay, and these are the subtests that we use here to identify our deficit in word recognition. We use real word and also nonsense word. Okay, so this is how we conduct the assessment. Yeah. Okay. And for the second criteria is test related to phonological processing. So for this, we include the consideration of tests which are related to phonological awareness, tests which are related to rapid naming, and also tests which are related to verbal memory. Okay, so these are different subtests here that contribute to the assessment of phonological processing. Okay, so for phonological processing, we do not use the stimulus word. So it's basically presenting it verbally for the child to identify and to produce the response here. Okay, the last criteria will be discrepancy. So for this, we have 6 checklist questions that help us to identify if there is a presence of discrepancy between reading and other cognitive skills. Okay, and this involves parent interview and history taking. Okay, so now we are coming to probably the last part of this presentation. Is about the research studies. Okay, so there are multiple studies have been done here to support the design and the development of these two. The design and development study involved 117 year 1 students in Malaysia. Our normative studies was conducted with 255 year 1 students in Malaysia. And for our sensitivity studies, we are conducted with 35 year 1 to 3 students who were detected as having risk in reading difficulties. And from there, from the design and development study, we identify the conceptual framework for the assessment design. From the normative study, we identify the score range and determine the internal reliability. And for the sensitivity study, we identify the sensitivity index and specificity index to support the validity and the reliability of this study. And this is the list of publications. Okay, so let me take some water first. Thank you. So lastly, just a simple overview of the process involved here when you are doing screening or observation or assessment using the MBU. So step 1 will be probably screening or observation that a child is struggling in reading, and then the child will be referred to us for assessment. So we will be using MBU to conduct the assessment according to these 3 criteria of International Dyslexia Association recommendation for the diagnosis of dyslexia. And then the third step will be making the diagnosis and report. So so these are the tools that we use. These are the testing process. So maybe some of you would be now asking the question, who is qualified to use MBU? Okay, so we have formed a group of committee, and we have identified that these are the qualification suitable to use MBU, okay, which include people who are registered with recognized Malaysian regulatory board and professional associations such as MATCH, MMA, MMC, MPA, MOTA, MSCP, and SPEAK. So they pretty much include professionals such as pediatricians, speech language therapists, clinical educational psychologists, occupational therapists, family medicine specialists, psychiatrists, and other related professionals in Malaysia, or remedial or special ed needs teachers here with minimum 5 years of experience teaching children with dyslexia. And the reason is it's important for us to ensure that these professionals were able to make clinical or make professional interpretation of the child's ability in reading in comparison to other cognitive abilities. Because of that third criteria, so that is the reason why we have to set qualification requirements for the user of these tests. So other highlights and details. So all the professionals who wanted to become MBU assessor, we would also invite them to attend the training. It's a one-day training, and currently we make it compulsory for all the assessors to attend the training so that we understand the principles, we understand the protocol assessment, and also the scoring of the assessment. So these are the highlights of the training, which include the principles of testing, protocol of testing, acquire the hands-on technique for the testing, and know how to interpret the results. And then during the training, we also discuss case studies and FAQs. Yeah. So currently we have run three trainings so far since March, August, yeah. So the next training will be in USMKL on 25th of August, and then for those from the East Malaysia, the next training will be Kota Kinabalu, 17 November. So usually, we have around 9 to 12 professionals that come in for each training. So if you want to join in any of the training, then you have to make sure that you actually submit order for MBU before that. So these are some of the training photos here, so which include the lecture and the hands-on practice. Okay, so currently this kit is priced at 1,888, which include a complimentary training. Okay, and in some settings, they say that, oh, I need one kid for my setting, but I have more than one clinicians or therapists who are interested to attend. So for anyone who want to send in the second practitioner to attend the training, they just need to top up 600, which is a 50% discount of the training price. Yeah, so they just need to top up additional 600. And so far from our past experience, most setting actually send in 2 practitioners to attend the training. Yeah, so that is for the training. Yeah, but for the testing time itself, usually is 30 to 60 minutes lah. Most for us who have been doing it for over hundreds of children, usually we do it around 20 to 30 minutes. So it's considered quite a time efficient way to assess dyslexia. Yeah. So how to access to MBU and the training? First is anyone who are interested, you submit the order form and proof of valid credentials. So in the order form, we will prompt you to provide certain credential evidence. So once you submit the order form, then it will take up to 1 to 3 days usually for the verification process. So once our panel verify the qualification, then the company will send you the quotation. And then you make the payment and your seat will be secure for the training. And your kit will be made available to you during the training day itself. Okay, so these are some of the FAQ questions here. Can I purchase the kit without the training? So the answer is no. Now we make it compulsory for everyone to attend the training because I think it's important for us to be on the same page, and it's important for us to know that practitioners and assessors had acquired the right skills and techniques to conduct the assessment. So if you purchase 1 kit, can I get training slots? So if you purchase 1 kit, the second attendees only pay 600, but the third attendees onwards will need to pay the full training amount, which is 1,200. So currently, we do not have virtual training option yet unless there is a special requirement. So sometimes we also cater for in-house training. So we have some purchaser that actually ask us to provide in-house training for them, and we did. Yeah. So do you need a certification before using the test? Yes, you can check our credential requirement just now. Yeah. Okay, so can we use MBU within maybe the government setting? Yes, we do welcome you to come to start the dialogue with us here to discuss how we can support you in this. Does MBU cover both languages? What is the language used in the assessment? So, like I said, MBU was designed to be a Malay language dyslexia assessment. So, but based on the assessment outcome from our experience, it gave a good insight of the presence of dyslexia in English as well. Yeah. It was not designed to be English because from the beginning, we want to make it something unique here for our children who are learning to read in Malay. So the test is in Malay language, but in some contexts, the children might not, their first language is not Malay. So during the conduct of the test for instruction, you can deliver it using the preferred language, but no, the testing item obviously is in Malay lah. Yeah. Okay, so who can be tested? So we also know that there are other children, dyslexia might not be their primary cause of learning difficulties, but they might have dyslexia might be a comorbid condition. For some children with ADHD or some children with autism or some children with other genetic condition. Yes, you can still use MBU for them because it helps you to understand what are their reading profiles and what are the things that they need, their strength and weakness here in reading. Is it suitable for all background of Malaysian children? Yes, we do believe it's suitable for all background of Malaysian children, including those who are reading in multiple languages. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, so that is our FAQ, and I think with that I will end my presentation. So I will open to Q&A if
Yeah.
there is any other
Yeah.
questions. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prof. Lau. I find this assessment tool very interesting because this which is very nice.
Okay, we have this audio.
But I do have one.
Yes, yes.
Because they might come like Darjah 1, like you said just now.
Uh-huh.
Darjah 1 not detected because people thought like, oh, maybe new environment, adjustment, phase. So they said, okay lah, give 1 year.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they come to us by Darjah 3. So in terms of is the age for assessment.
Most of our studies, we do it with Darjah 1 students.
Right.
Yeah, and then, and we find it suitable for Darjah 1 students. So don't worry if you feel that the students are still young, because as long as the students had went to preschool, at least 2 years of preschool, where the students had been exposed to reading, so no, you can actually use this kit to assess the competency of reading.
And for siapa yang dekat online boleh bagi soalan boleh type dekat chat
I can share the screen.
Okay. Alright.
Intan.
Soalan, mata CPD, minta maaf ya, mata CPD hanya untuk peserta secara face to face daripada pihak penganjur lah kata.
Cepat-cepat datang.
Pesanan penganjur. So, kalau ada soalan, anda boleh type dan kita akan bacakan dan kita tanya Prof. Lau. Bukan senang nak dapat dia datang kat sini. And then, I think it's good that when you if you acquire the kit, the training come together with it. So I think that is ethical.
Yeah.
So, and it tends to be like not being misused and misinterpreted.
Yeah.
Because we do have like risau kan, takut over interpretation or under interpretation.
Yes.
But then one more question that I want to ask, this is assessment too. So meaning that it's not confirmatory of the diagnosis?
It's an assessment tool, and I think we would let respective setting to decide who to make the confirmatory diagnosis. And I think most people, professional that we came across, they would suggest that they would leave it to the doctor or the clinical psychologist to do the confirmatory diagnosis. But I think no, the report can be presented to them. And if doctors who would want to do the MBU, it will be even more straightforward.
Yes.
But we know that in many settings, doctors are busy, so they might not have the time to do the assessment. So they might get other professionals to do the assessment and then to present the report for them for the confirmatory diagnosis. Because I think it's important to consider that the reading is in isolation of maybe other also developmental condition. So that's the reason I think clinical diagnosis is important.
Okay.
Because this test only look at reading.
All right. Okay. Any question from the floor? Yes.
Doktor, kan macam sekarang kalau tengok yang ejaan tadi kan banyak kepada word sound. So adakah penting untuk budak terutama membaca secara fonik? Sebab sekarang kan kita ada macam membaca secara fonik ataupun ejaan lama?
Okay, dia sama sahaja. Okay, untuk assessment lah, penilaian, tak kisah if budak itu dia belajar phonics atau budak itu belajar membaca mengikut yang nama huruf, sama sahaja. Untuk assessment dia tak ada beza ya. Tapi untuk intervention dia akan beza. So kalau untuk murid atau kanak-kanak disleksia, biasa intervention nanti dia akan lebih guna teknik phonics lah. Okay, tapi itu lain lah. Tapi for assessment dia sama sahaja.
Ada soalan? Dia soalan ni tak habis. Elisa Aris. Does dyslexia fill in the blank? Tak apa, boleh type dalam bahasa Melayu juga if kalau nak. Dalam bahasa Inggeris pun boleh. Mandarin you can read, right? Mandarin pun boleh. Dr. Lau boleh bacakan soalannya. Okay. I thought that dyslexia is just a matter of like you cannot like D terbalik or B terbalik, because I got a lot of
how we describe dyslexia. But might be a signs that many dyslexia children are showing, but it doesn't tell the big picture or the whole story. So if mereka perkataan terbalik sahaja atau huruf terbalik, macam mana you nak ajar? Okay, dia tak ada cukup insight untuk kita tentukan plan mengajar. Tapi kalau guna assessment, dia ada 10 subtest. So kita tahu yang mana yang terlibat. Sebab semua kanak-kanak profil dia berlain. Ada yang working memory dia lemah, tapi ada skill okay. Ada yang working memory okay, tapi ada skill lemah. So kita boleh design intervention based on the strength and the weakness lah.
Okay, soalan Elisa dah keluar. When parents should be concerned about dyslexia of their children? Red flag.
Red flag. So red flag including a few that I mentioned earlier on here. I think in general, susah kita identify dyslexia before the child is reading. Right? Because it needs the experience to reading to tell us that the child is a struggle reader. So, and then the red flag would be the child take longer time than other kids to identify new words. I think this is one red flag. And the second red flag is the same word. The child keep on naming it differently. For example, kita kata perkataan bicycle. Sometimes he say bicycle, sometimes he say bus, and then sometimes he say bako. So the child would name it differently according to the creativity. And then we know that the child doesn't depend on phonology skill to read. Because if the child depends on phonological to read, he will probably say bicy, or basake. The sound will be rather consistent, and you will say that the child is trying to read, but maybe not mature enough to read fluently or proficiently. But if the child error pattern is very inconsistent, even from the beginning, then we know the child is not decoding. The child is just try and error and guessing.
Or maybe like memorizing.
And some children with dyslexia, some of the early signs are the child will probably also present with speech sound disorders. So that in the early stage, because I say early stage, susah catch, but 2 to 3 years old, you realize that the child usually has substitute sounds, seems to not able to pronounce certain sounds correctly. This is also one of the early red flag. So if any children is showing these signs and symptoms, you can get speech therapies to do some assessment, and then later you want to monitor when the child is exposed to reading, how he responds to the words and the text, whether he's showing all those signs and symptoms that I mentioned earlier. Okay, and then in some kindergarten or at home, sometimes we play word game. Like I say, tell me words that rhyme with scared, tell me words that sounds like man. No, if kids who already taught about all those words, having the experience to do these related activities and still couldn't do it independently, then we will also suspect lah. Okay.
Okay, all right. And then usually dyslexia occur on its own. But then if it occur together with other diseases, would that be worse outcome? Like the child has maybe like autism plus dyslexia.
Yeah. So I think I came across some literature that say that the comorbidity rate is actually pretty high. Like I think it's like up to 30% children with autism might also have some reading difficulties, or similar to children with ADHD might also have some difficulties. So we can imagine, I think the difficulty parts would probably, or the challenge would probably be more, because like for autism, it might be harder for the teacher to communicate with the child. Yeah, and the child might not be actively using compensation strategy to help himself to read. So I think then the reading ability will be even more affected compared to those child with dyslexic condition alone. And ADHD as well, the child has inattention problem. It might find it even hard to follow reading instruction. So I think those would add challenge to the condition itself, and also would make the intervention more challenging.
All right. Subsequent question. Can anyone use this assessment tool? And can this assessment used to diagnose a child for dyslexia?
Okay, so at the moment, this is considered like a professional assessment tool. So anyone that fulfill the criteria to be an assessor can use this tool. So those professionals that we have identified so far are like doctors, clinical psychologists, educational psychologists, speech therapists, occupational therapists, special education teachers, and remedial teachers. And including some teachers, you might not fall into that category, but you can show us evidence that you have been supporting children with reading difficulties for more than 5 years. Then you will be able to use the tool. And just now I say, once you sign up for the tool and also the training, then you will be given a 1-day training. And after 1-day training, you have to complete a test, and it requires 100% proficiency rate. So you have to pass all the questions in the test. So, and then you will be appointed as the certified MBU assessor. And then you can join the pool of MBU assessor. If you go to our website, the list, those who have become MBU assessor will be listed on our website. So parents can go there to seek for your information, and parents can go to the website to find those assessors which are nearer to them.
Yeah. Okay. One final question. To what extent that dyslexia from childhood may develop into adulthood?
Dyslexia is a lifelong condition. So, but what happens is some children, they receive intervention, and the purpose of the intervention is to help them to find some compensation strategies, to decode and to encode, to enable to compensate for the breakdown in phonological processing. And then later on, they rely on those strategies to help them to manage reading. So, but people without intervention, then it will depend on them to find out their own strategies. So those strategies, sometimes it could be effective, sometimes it could be less effective. So if they are unable to find effective strategies to help themselves, or they couldn't find any strategies to help themselves, that is when the reading difficulties become very obvious, and it disrupts them, or it stops them from becoming efficient readers. And that would affect their ability to perform academically, and ultimately their quality of life will be affected as well. So it's a lifelong condition. There are not many researchers that show that it resolve or the level of difficulties actually reduce here as they grow older. But definitely compensation strategies and remedial strategies will help them to minimize the impact of this condition that they are having.
Okay, all right. I think we are already like 4:08. I think that's about it. Thank you so much.
So can I share
Yeah.
some the remaining slides?
Boleh?
Okay, I go back to the slide, So just a little bit of early announcement. Other than MBU, we also have a few other assessment that will be slowly introduced to the public between 2024 and 2025 So stay tuned to us. You can follow us in our Facebook or our website for update. And then we hope that you support us, shift our mindset to prioritize the use of locally developed evidence-based assessment tools to elevate the quality of our clinical practice in Malaysia. And also, we welcome you to visit us in our website and our Facebook. And then, and I also want to call everyone who are interested to send in your order and join us in our upcoming training in KL on 25th of August. So you can also contact us through our WhatsApp or our email. And do give us feedback for today's talk. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Lau. I think that's about it. Oh, and then we have some gift of appreciation, a token of appreciation to Prof. Lau. A token of appreciation. So, okay. Give us your suggestion and we will try and see what we can do. Apa-apa topik yang ada kaitan dengan pendidikan kesihatan. Okay, alright, thank you.
So, can you studio?